Well, the Toronto Blue Jays trade deadline has come and gone. A lot of fans are pretty happy and a lot of fans are really mad. Where do me and Carter stand on this? Where do you guys stand on it? We want to know. Everybody's got opinions. What are they?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. However, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5Iwasko. Carter First too as well on our main Twitter account at Locked On Jays. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. You guys have been knocking it out of the park. Unbelievable the amount of new people coming in. And if you are new or you just found us, let us know in the comments that you are a new listener. When did you find us? We love hearing those. And you know, when you joined the Locked On Blue Jays community, the people here are fantastic. You know, I said it in the live stream, you know, if you disagree with me or you agree with me, I want to hear your opinions. That's what we like about this show is we get a lot of different viewpoints. And oh my goodness, the trade deadline come and gone. There are a lot of opinions. And I think that there are a lot of people taking one stand or the other. Either they're really for this trade deadline that the Toronto Blue Jays did, or they're super against it and they're mad about it. We're going to break it all down because we have a lot of thoughts, and I want to clear up some things that were said on the live stream, just because, you know, some of the opinions, it was a whirlwind of a day. Me and Carter had an absolute wild day around this trade deadline, trying to keep up with everything, trying to keep you guys kept up with everything. So we just want to, I think this gives us a good step back and being able to actually articulate our thoughts a little bit better than, hey, the trade happened. Oh my goodness, now we're live. So it was a ton of fun. Your guys' comments were unbelievable. I think we had like 400 people on the live stream there for the final trade. So shout out all of you guys. It was a fantastic day. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, had an absolute blast. But we're going to break down each and every one of these trades. We're going to give our opinions, our thoughts on them, our grades for this deadline. Of course, final segment will be the series preview. So if you come here always for the series previews, we'll get to that in the third segment. But a lot more pressing information has just come out for us all. And we'll talk about sort of how this now lineup transitions with these new players and sort of what it all means together. Carter, my man, 5 players in, 5 players out. So I'm going to start from the beginning here. I'm going to let you know sort of who's in, who's out for the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll go through them all. But I figured I'm just going to get this out of the way. A lot of you saw our Instagram, our TikTok, our Twitter, whatever it may be, with all of this information. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time rehashing it, but we are going to dive into it a little bit. So the first trade that happened was Seranthony Dominguez, reliever, and Juwan Watts-Brown goes back the other way. Then the second trade, obviously, yesterday morning was Shane Bieber, a piece that we're going to have to talk a lot about, and Cal Steven, the Blue Jays' 5th-ranked prospect, goes back. Then right after that, I think within the last 25 minutes, 30 minutes of the trade deadline, we get a very strange trade, or at the time it put a little bit of panic into my heart. The Blue Jays get Brandon Valenzuela, and Will Wagner goes the other way. We'll talk more about this right away when we actually dive into all these. The fourth and final trade had the Twins sending Varland and Ty France to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Kendry Rojas and Alan Roden. So a lot that goes down there, Carter. Do you just want to start at the beginning, or how do you sort of want to work through this?
Yeah, a wild day at the trade deadline. I started out this day on a safari. I was, doing my first ever live stream / podcast in the middle of nowhere, just in a park. That was very interesting. And then the second one, I was at my parents' house doing it in their room. And then I'm finally back to my actual place, usually where I film these podcasts. So I'm definitely happy to be back. I just wanted to put in a little bit more filler information.
Sure.
Juwan Watts-Brown, the 10th rated prospect for the Toronto Blue Jays. And then Kendry Rojas at that point would have been the 5th rated prospect because Cal Steven had already been on the move. In regards to the prospects, I don't want to spend a lot of the time on these guys because prospects, we always talk about our lottery tickets. You don't know exactly how they're going to pan out. I think these teams are going to be lucky if one of these guys pans out. But my money is on Cal Steven being that one prospect to pan out. This is the only guy that I was slightly upset to see go. I think it's because he was new. He was drafted in the 2024 draft class. He was one of the guys that shot up the prospect rankings very quickly. It went from low A all the way up to double A very quickly. The fastball plays very well. The changeup looks good as well. So there's a lot of upside to Cal Steven, but you have to give up assets to get assets. You can't just expect to give up your scraps and then all of a sudden you bring in Paul Skeens, Joe Ryan, whoever it ends up being. And the Toronto Blue Jays, when you're looking at the starting market, I think we'll start with the Shane Bieber one because that's the one I think is the most volatile is the word I will use because this could go really well or really bad just because Shane Bieber, along kind of with the Alek Manoah story, both going through similar processes, this guy hasn't pitched in the Major League since April of 2024. However, this is a previous Cy Young winner. The Blue Jays collecting previous Cy Young winners like Infinity Stones. We got 2, need obviously a few more with Max Scherzer being on this team as well. But Shane Bieber making some rehab starts. He has thrown 4 rehab starts. There we go. What I was looking for. He is throwing his 5th one on Sunday. That should be in AAA. That was a Guardians plan. I think the Toronto Blue Jays will just kind of take over that plan like they took over the contract, like they took over the player. I think they'll probably keep him on a similar rehab path. You might be thinking, hey, if he had Tommy John in April of 2024, why isn't he already pitching? And it's because he had a setback in June. It was that throwing elbow. So they completely shut him down with Shane Bieber. I think the Toronto Blue Jays will take a similar stance. I don't think this trade was necessarily for the regular season. I think this trade had a bigger picture in mind, not only the playoffs for 2025 here, but he does have a player option as well in 2026, $16 million player option, or he can take a $4 million buyout and hit free agency. So that was one thing I had a little bit of a mistake on is that, again, with how wild the day was, I did think they had a little bit more control. They still have a player option, so he can be here in 2026, but it's definitely not confirmed. But one benefit to this is if that he's not here in 2026, he decides not to take that player option, probably means he pitched pretty damn good for the Toronto Blue Jays down the stretch. A guy coming off of Tommy John, a guy that is confident enough to not make that $16 million in one season. Again, it's only a 1-year contract. So that would be the benefit of Shane Bieber not staying here. If he does take that player option, it doesn't necessarily mean it went bad, but it just means that he wants to bet on himself. Again, he wants to take a shorter contract and maybe hit the market where he can make a higher AAV on the open market. But overall, like if we're looking at upside for a lot of these pitchers that were dealt at this trade deadline, not a lot of starting pitchers really on the move, especially a lot of these guys with control. Sandy Alcantara didn't move. Joe Ryan did not move. Mitch Keller did not move. But the 2 bigger starting pitchers that I saw being moved, correct me if I'm forgetting anyone here, Merrill Kelly was on the move. And then if you're looking at upside, Shane Bieber might be that dude with the highest amount of upside that was moved at the trade deadline for starting pitching. So it is a risk, again, with this injury and how serious Tommy John surgery is. But if you can get Shane Bieber back and he can kind of be the guy that he was in the previous years in 2023 and 2022. I mean, if you get 2021, shoe-in game 1 starter. So I do like this trade a lot from Russ Atkins. I don't know if people are going to love it just because of, how the Max Scherzer stuff went. I know this guy's 41 years old, so it's a little bit different. And with the uncertainty with Alek Manoah. But I think the way the Toronto Blue Jays are looking right now, they didn't want to spend assets for a 5th starter. So you might as well, take the little bit of the coin flip, take the risk, and try to get a guy that can make hopefully multiple playoff starts for your baseball team come October.
Yeah, and we're going to have a lot of thoughts and feelings on sort of all of these guys. But this one in particular, I think you're right, had the most controversy around it because some people were really not happy with the injury and them still having to rehab. The good thing that I will say in regards to all of this is that he has looked pretty good in all of his rehab starts. So, you know what? I think that's something we can hang our hats on as Blue Jays fans is not that he's going out there and getting blown up and, the velo's down and the commands all over the place. No, he looks just like a Shane Bieber that's trying to get back into it, figuring it all out again. And Carter, me and you sort of threw this around beforehand, the fact that this would be probably, I was thinking 8 starts more so until he's back, which he's already done 4. So 4 more is sort of what was in my head before this. You said you think probably around 7. Is that about right?
Yeah, I said 6 at the absolute minimum, but probably 7. He is making a AAA start, like I said, on Sunday. In his last outing, he threw 57 pitches, 37 of those were strikes. So he is planning on pitching. Again, this was the Guardians' plan, but why wouldn't the Toronto Blue Jays just kind of overtake it? Again, planning to pitch 55 or throw 55 pitches on that Sunday. So again, that's his 5th start. You got to assume he's probably going to need at least one more, get to 70 pitches. He'd probably feel safer with a 7th one, probably even with an 8th one, like you did say. So like I said, I think they're trying to save Shane Bieber to be ready for the playoffs and maybe the last few weeks of the season, kind of have a little bit of a trial run for the playoffs. But it's not a big need when you have Eric Lauer, Max Scherzer. You got the starting rotation right now. And that is the kind of last thing I want to bring up with Shane Bieber is that say this goes really well. We'll be optimistic with Shane Bieber here. We'll say that by middle of August, this guy is back and he is in the rotation. You know that you have the Shane Bieber that you're kind of hoping for after this trade deadline. So that leaves you with 6 competent starters. I've been thinking about this one for a while. We talked about it on the live stream. I didn't have a concise answer there, but I'll phrase it to you to start off here. What are you doing with the 6 guys in this rotation if Shane Bieber does come back and is firing on all cylinders?
Carter, man, this is something I have been thinking about since this, yesterday morning's live stream. It has been something that has been tearing a hole in my brain. This is the biggest problem now. You look at the bullpen, you understand what has to be moved and who goes maybe not where, but you know who's your team. With this one, the problem is the fact that Eric Lauer has been so good. How do you take anything away from him? Kevin Gausman he's your guy. You're not taking anything away from him. Jose Berrios, you're not taking anything away from him. So to me, that leaves 2 guys right now that I'm just not sure. And Chris Bassitt is Chris Bassitt. How do you take anything away from him? But Max Scherzer's heating up. How do you take anything away from him now that he's starting to get going? And again, there is a 2 to 3 week waiting period here still where bad things can happen. Injuries can happen. So this might all be figured out for us. But as of right now, with 2 guys on the injured list still in Alek, Manoah, and Bowden Francis, it really starts to become a juggling act with who pitches what, who pitches where. And if we were talking about playoffs right now, I would tell you, okay, well, this makes your job very easy. And you throw Bassitt and you throw Lauer into the pen and you use those guys, maybe Scherzer, flip-flop one of those guys, whatever, into the pen. And you have a really solid long relief option. Eric Lauer becomes sort of something this bullpen needs. But right now for the regular season, I just don't know. I don't think they go to a 6-man. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm lost. I'm sort of just waiting to see what might come about here. I don't know. Do you think you have any insights on what you think maybe should happen or will happen?
It's a tough scenario when I was looking at this. I ran a bunch of scenarios through my head, and I did come up with a couple of conclusions. So the first thing I looked at is just probably the easiest fix of this one. It's just the 6-man rotation. It's rolling out all of these guys in, again, just one after another. You get an extra day rest. We've seen how that can benefit for Kevin Gausman. But the first thing I thought of is that, hey, if you have an off day kind of mixed up in here, and if you have a couple off days in short succession, players could be waiting a week. Players could be waiting 8 days to throw. And rest is good, but too much rest can kind of make you a little bit rusty. It can make you not feel as confident. And then you're almost like overthrowing on the mound because you kind of lose a little bit of that feeling because you're not going out there every 5 days. On an off day, an extra off day once in a while isn't a bad thing, but consistently not the greatest. So the off days that the Toronto Blue Jays do have coming up here, so they have an August 7th and 11th coming up. They're both off. Again, just Shane Bieber ready at that point. Probably not. So that one, not a big deal. The 21st, they have an off day. And then again, September 4th and September 8th. If you have a 6-man rotation, a few guys are going to be missing outings, obviously, and they're going to be pushed back even farther. So that might be an issue that you do run into with the 6-man rotation. But if you're at the point where you only have like a month left in the season anyway, like maybe you have a little bit of leeway, Alek Manoah is going to be thrown into that equation as well. So I don't know if the 6-man rotation is necessarily the greatest thing, but you have a lot of pitchers that can go into this lineup. So that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Next thing I kind of thought of, I'll try to quickly go over this, is Chris Bassitt. Chris Bassitt seems like the guy that doesn't really care whether he's in the bullpen, whether he's an opener, whether he's starting. He would go in the ninth inning if you want him to go out in the ninth inning. We've seen him appear out of the bullpen once this season. So I think if like you're just looking at who would probably perform the best in a bunch of different scenarios, and maybe a guy that you can use if your starter blows up, or maybe you need a long relief outing, or maybe there's an injury, God forbid, whatever it is, I think Chris Bassitt would adjust the best to that.
I agree.
But this is kind of where I've landed just recently, like almost like an hour before this podcast. And maybe like I will change my mind once again, is that at this trade deadline, there was one thing that wasn't necessarily addressed to my liking and maybe up to the par that you will need in a playoff series. And that's your left-handers out of the bullpen. You have Brendan Little, you have Mason Flaherty. Do you really want to trust Mason Flaherty in all of these scenarios? You got a pretty good lefty in your starting rotation right now that has pitched out of the bullpen in a bunch of instances and has been pretty good against lefties and righties, and that is Eric Lauer. So maybe that is an option that this team does undertake as well. You can carry 4 starters into the playoffs as well if you anticipate going on a deeper run, which I think a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans want to see that deeper run. So maybe that's something they experiment with as well. They roll out their 5 starters. At that point, when you get to the playoffs, maybe you cut Max Scherzer. That's a whole different animal that you got to talk about. But at least for the rest of the regular season, maybe you throw Eric Lauer into that bullpen role, but he's been one of your best starters. So there's a couple options there. I think for me right now, I think what they're going to do is they're going to roll the 6-man to start. I think that's where it's going to end up. But I don't necessarily think that's the best option long-term, at least for this ball club.
And I think this is where we come down, right? It's you roll the 6-man, you figure out, okay, who can do what and who goes where. And then maybe after 2 rounds of a 6-man, you put it all together. And it's up to this management group to decipher all of that. Well, it's not up to me and you sitting on our couches in the armchairs. It's the guys making the decision, and, put some pressure on John Schneider. What do you think? Make him be a manager. Make them make decisions. And this is a good position to be in because I don't necessarily think there is a completely wrong option here. It might not go well, but you still have enough time in this season to be able to figure some things out.
Well, and these things tend to work themselves out as well. Like you said, knock on wood, whether there's an injury, some performances that some people might start overperforming, underperforming. There's peaks and valleys in a season. So I think we will have a little bit of a more clear picture, especially we have to see what Shane Bieber does. There's a lot of unknowns still with this Toronto Blue Jays team. So that was, again, best case scenario. If everything does go well, I think playoff scenario, Eric Lauer is probably pushed to the bullpen just as another left-handed option. But as for the rest of the regular season, I mean, it's pretty much a coin flip at this point. Maybe we'll use a T flip because we're going to be on the golf course this weekend, and hopefully you guys are as well. But a few more trades we want to go over, just the entire trade deadline in totality. So much to talk about. One of the busiest days, obviously, of the Major League season. We're excited for it. We hope you guys were excited as well. And we hope that you enjoyed what the kind of antics were from this trade deadline. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. We'll dive into all of them after this short break. Today's episode is sponsored by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course, you don't have it. You have an off day, and you just need that little extra energy boost to stay sharp and energized. Especially in the summer, like I am so busy. I'm doing stuff on Friday nights. I'm doing something during the week. The Blue Jays games sometimes make you stay up late. We do these podcasts. So there's a lot of times that I'm a little bit tired. I need an extra pick-me-up. And 5-Hour Energy Transfusions have been helping me a ton, especially that I love golfing as well. So I love a good transfusion. The 5-Hour Energy Transfusion was a very easy adjustment to make, and I use it very regularly now in my day-to-day life. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LockedOnGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. And whether you're meeting up with your friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today.
So, Carter, just before we get into the rest of the trades, I did want to just go over a few things that have come out later in the night. So Louis Varland, Ty France expected to be here tomorrow for the Royals series. That's per Ross Atkins, just some of the stuff coming out from the media availability. Shane Bieber will be at Rogers Center tomorrow. Blue Jays will sit down with him to determine when he makes his next rehab start. Meanwhile, catcher Brandon Valenzuela is slated for AAA. That's per Ross Atkins. That all comes from Ben Nicholson-Smith. So there you go as well. A couple just quick updates for all of you, Carter. But as we continue on here, I'll let you sort of kick things off.
Yeah, I guess we'll jump into that. The information you kind of just brought up. It's with Ty France and it's with Louis Varland. A little bit of a buzzer beater at the end of this trade deadline. Before that, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit defeated. I thought Ross Atkins that was sitting on his hands. I thought he might have, taken a little bit of a nap in the biggest moment of the season up to this point. I was nervous. We were texting in our Locked On group chat. A lot of the boys were not exactly happy. And the first thing that I saw, at least, was Ty France was coming to the Blue Jays. And Ty France was not the piece that I was excited about in this trade whatsoever. Even up to this point, I don't think we'll talk about it a ton in this episode, but we will have to talk about how Ty France does fit into this lineup where he can play. It is a pretty good defenseman at first base. We have Vladdy over there. I mean, I think maybe Ty France is better defensive Vladdy, but you're not taking Vladdy's bat out of that lineup. So that's something we are going to have to discuss as we continue on with the podcast. But Louis Varland is the guy that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. I did have him in a couple of my predictions. I mean, I made a million predictions. It's the trade deadline. There's a lot of guys that we were talking about, but when I was looking at the Minnesota Twins, I was looking at some of the history that this Blue Jays team has had with them. And maybe you wanted Griffin Jacks, maybe you wanted Johan Duran, maybe even Danny Coulomb, but we do get Louis Varland. Not necessarily saying that is a bad thing whatsoever, because this guy is very good as well. A starter that has been converted over to a relief pitcher. As a starter, things really did not go that well in 2024. Had a 7.61 ERA in 46 2/3 innings. Also had 49 strikeouts. Transferred over to the bullpen. Kind of a little bit of the same thing that Yariel Rodriguez did. I would say Yariel Rodriguez has better stuff. Louis Varland probably throws a little bit harder, more consistently, but a similar idea to what Yariel Rodriguez did. Move him to the bullpen, kind of have that idea of just let it eat. You don't have to let it go for 60 pitches, 70 pitches, 4 innings, 5 innings, whatever it ends up being. You can just go at these hitters as hard as you can for an inning or two, and Louis Varland has found a lot of success in that role. The fastball velo sits at 97.9 on average. That is good for the 95th percentile in the league. Does have some good chase stuff as well. 31.5%, 90% chase rate. That would be absolutely ridiculous. That's like me against Brayden in live at-bats. Ground ball pitcher. This is a guy that you can throw in the middle of the 7th inning, middle of the 8th inning. If you do have some runners on, 55.6% ground ball rate. And a lot of this, I think success can be chalked up to this as well. And it's the extension that he does get off the mound. Is he a guy that already throws hard? Now he's extending closer to the plate. That adds another just mile or two onto his pitch right there. And it's not because he's throwing it that much harder, it's because he's that much closer to the plate than a lot of these other pitchers. So that plays up with the velo. That's going to play off with a lot of his secondary pitches as well. And a guy that's under control, the biggest part of it, till 2031. So we are going to be seeing a lot of Louis Varland. Does carry a little bit of risk. Again, kind of the same idea with Yariel Rodriguez. Has been very good this year, but you haven't necessarily seen it consistently. And you did give up, at that point, your number 5 prospect to get him. But a move that you definitely needed to make. Just looking at this bullpen, looking at some of the injuries that you had, and then just looking around the league at some of what some of the other contenders, there we go, did around the AL.
Carter, you know what? I went on Edmonton radio last night, and one of the questions was, well, now what does this bullpen look like to you? And it was the easiest answer of all time. With Seranthony Dominguez coming in as well as Louis Varland, this might just be, and I know people might say whatever, have their opinions, this might just be the best bullpen in the past 20, 25 years for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I don't necessarily know if it's close. It is that solid. The floor was raised so much with these trades that it makes that much of a difference. Yes, I don't necessarily think that you've pushed the ceiling of this bullpen, that you're going to have a guy, 4 guys that come in and you just know it's going to be 3 up, 3 down every time. But I think the chances of a blow up or a major collapse are way lower now. I mean, even Seranthony Dominguez, who, his problem was always a little bit of the control. Was he able to keep the ball in the strike zone and pitches where he wants them? It was always in question. Lately, he's been getting a lot better and being able to control that fastball and control those secondary pitches. So this is a bullpen I'm very excited about. And I don't think I got that across to people when talking about the Louis Varland trade and the Ty France trade. Was it, and people were asking me like, oh, why are you so hung up on Roden and Will Wagner? I'm not hung up on those guys. And I have certain opinions on those guys. Like if it was Alan, when I compare Alan Roden to Ty France, I compare Ty France more so to the bench bats that we have. It's like, wow, we have guys that already do this, but understanding this trade as a whole, it's that Ty France is probably a throw-in here, right? And they didn't want him. The Blue Jays were like, all right, we'll take him. Maybe it knocks off a couple of the, what they were asking for Louis Varland. Louis Varland, I really like. Both bullpen arms and the starting pitcher that we've gotten through this trade, I am ecstatic about. I love this. The downside to this trade is that now you have Ty France taking up a spot for guys that might have earned it, that might have been with this team. That was where my problem came. And it is what it is. Because you having to eat a little bit of Ty France to get Louis Varland, I'm sort of okay with, because he's going to do okay things to the plate. He's not horrendous. So I just wanted to clear some of those things up in regards to this trade. It's not that I love Alan Roden and Will Wagner. It's more so the fact that I just think that there are guys that are in the organization that have been a part of this team that aren't going to give you any less than what Ty France is giving you. That's. I just wanted to put that out there, Carter.
The Blue Jays didn't make this trade for Ty France. I mean, that should be abundantly clear. We made this trade for Louis Varland. Ty France isn't going to hurt you, though, at the end of the day. Who's he going to be taking at bats from? At worst, Davis Schneider. I know you're not going to like that necessarily, but like right now, Leo Jimenez is probably who he's going to slot in for. Yeah. Will Wagner, who just got traded. Are you really that upset that Will Wagner's not getting as many at-bats as he was before? He's not even on your team anymore. Like, I liked Will Wagner, but I'm not necessarily that upset to see him go. That trade was a little bit weird. Well, you can kind of go into that right now off the top as well. But,
and just one thing,
I'm not that upset about Will Wagner leaving.
No, and my bigger point was like taking at-bats away from Ernie Clement or Joey Loperfido, right? The guys that you're seeing do jobs. Nathan Lucas, there you go, right? Do you want to see Ty France in, or would you rather see the guys that have helped get this team here that are still doing jobs to this day? And so that was my only problem with that. I have zero problem. I want to put that out there. Zero problem with Varland, with Dominguez, or with Bieber. Well, Bieber, we've talked about that and just the injury problems. But with those two bullpen arms, I have zero problem with those two guys. I think it makes this bullpen that much better. It makes them that more serious of a bullpen. I think you're terrified to almost face now anybody coming out of the Blue Jays bullpen. So in that regards, good trade. Whatever. I've made myself very clear on Ty France.
Yeah, they got a bunch of guys that can go out there and put up zeros for your team. I think where people get disappointed and maybe a little bit underwhelmed amongst this trade deadline is you didn't really go out and get that like sexy name that a lot of us were looking for. You didn't get a Duvall. You didn't get a David Bednar. God, that Yankees team looks a little bit scary now. That's why I want to start with those two. But you didn't get a Griffin Jax. You didn't get a Mason Miller. So a lot of the big names that a lot of Blue Jays fans were hoping for, Ryan Helsley, another one, along that we were hoping for. Like I was the biggest David Bednar guy of all time, and now we have to see him be on the New York Yankees the next year and a half. Tell me or ask me how happy I am about that. That's a whole other conversation that I could go into. But I think that's the biggest gripe with a lot of people right now, especially that you're seeing your AL East rival having all of these massive names coming into town, making massive splashes. And the Toronto Blue Jays made a few of their own splashes as well. These definitely aren't moves to be underestimated. These guys are going to help you down the stretch, and they complement each other very well. Seranthony Dominguez, you want to do a 1-2 punch. Dominguez strikes out the first guy, maybe walks the next two, and then Louis Varland comes in and gets that double play ball immediately because he is a ground ball pitcher. So you got guys that can do different things. It's just tough, again, when you see the Mariners going out and getting Suarez and Josh Naylor. You see the Padres trading away literally everybody in their prospect pool. And then you see the Minnesota Twins, which you have a tweet that I really want you to bring up on this podcast, because we were kind of talking about this a little bit off camera. I'm sure you guys have seen what's going on with the Twins as well. A little bit off topic, but how many players did this Minnesota Twins team sell, and how in the world are they going to field a baseball team to finish out the rest of the season? And
all right, I just
in there as well. The Blue Jays do play the Twins one more time for a 3-game series.
Yeah, this is absolutely wild. Like, this might have been the biggest sell-off I have ever seen. It is that crazy. 10 players for the Minnesota Twins were traded. Chris Paddock goes to the Tigers. Louis Varland to the Jays. Carlos Correa goes to Houston. Reconnects with some of those boys. Ty France to the Jays. Griffin Jax to the Rays. Harrison Bader to the Phillies. Another sort of weird, interesting one there. Brock Stewart to the Dodgers, Willie Castro to the Cubs, Johan Duran to the Phillies, and Danny Colomb to the Rangers. So this team selling off 10 major pieces. Carter, this is going to be like when, when the like NHL team, or it's going to be playing spring training. That's what it really is going to be. It's like, oh, let's see what any of our prospects can do in the major league level. Like, this is absolutely insanity.
Well, and a lot of the guys they sold off too had some years of control left. It wasn't like the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024 where it's just all rentals. Like Johan Duran was going to be there for a while. Louis Varland was going to be there for a while. You look at a lot of guys. Carlos Guerrero still had multiple years left for that baseball team. Obviously, they wanted to move on. They gave the Astros a little bit of cash as well to eat that contract. But if I'm a Twins fan and like, imagine you just went in a coma for 4 days and you're like, oh, like my Twins, like I'm not sure if they're selling. They probably will, but like I'm not 100% sure. Maybe they'll sell off a few guys. Then you wake up and you see like what you got in front of you, and you got Trevor Larnach, Matt Wallner, and then nobody else really in that lineup. It's just like, oh God, what are we going to do for the next 60 games of the season? Like it's a little bit unfortunate.
Oh my God, Carter, I forgot. I have to bring this up too. Sorry, there's so much happened this trade deadline. The Fox Sports team breaking news that Joe Ryan was traded and he wasn't. Oh my goodness!
If you're a little bit of a John Morosi situation there with the show on the plane. Oh, that's actually hilarious. That might be the greatest thing of all time. I was seeing a lot of those Joe Ryan rumors to the Red Sox, and that might have been the dagger for me at that point. That was, again, when before the Louis Varland trade, you saw Duvall go to the Yankees. You saw Bednar go to the Yankees. You saw everyone making moves, really, other than your Blue Jays team. Joe Ryan went to the Red Sox. And, like, for a first series, the Blue Jays have to play, like, the Mariners, the Yankees, or the Red Sox. You get Crochet, Joe Ryan back-to-back. My God. Oh, I don't know how I would have made it through the night. But thank God that it did not work out for them. Because, again, they could use the middle of the order at bat that's playing first base, maybe hits from the left side. You know, maybe some people say he's a locker room cancer, but I think he would have helped out that ball club a little bit at the trade deadline. But it's nice to see that that Joe Ryan trade did not work out. And at least the Twins held on to somebody for that organization's sake.
I just couldn't imagine being a Red Sox fan. Like, actually, I can't, because it happened to us with Shohei Ohtani. So,
and some want Soto and Roki Sasaki and Corbin Burns. And some people say Teo. All right, and I got like 8 more if we want to go to that.
No, that's good. That's enough. Yeah. I just, before we take a break, because we could talk trade deadline and what this means and the implications of everything. And we will over the next little while. We will, but we don't want to take up a million hours of your guys' time as we have been the past week. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been great. But I did want to just go over the final piece of the puzzle that did happen that threw me for a little bit of a loop and a panic. And that was the Blue Jays getting Brandon Valenzuela for Will Wagner. The only reason that this move was even like a little bit on my radar was the fact that it happened 25 minutes before the trade deadline. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why are you wasting time with a third catcher that will probably not play in the big leagues this year? And that's what you're worried about for this trade deadline. And I was losing my mind. Obviously, that indicated that another trade was probably coming. But a little panic set in. I'm like, why is Ross Atkins worrying about this right now? And then obviously the big trade comes down and you understand the consequences behind that trade and why they had to make some move. So, you know what? They got a catcher. I think that means that Ali Sanchez, with any injuries, probably doesn't get the call back up. It probably is Brandon Valenzuela now, but it's still wait to be seen. Obviously, things can happen, but that would trigger something in my head to believe that maybe you do see him at some point.
See, I got Ali Sanchez still just because of his familiarity with the staff. I think at this point, why throw in a guy that's not familiar with really anybody? And he was in Double A before this, so he's already making that jump up to Triple A.
Sure.
So I think that's just a little bit of an aggressive move from the Toronto Blue Jays. Not really needed when, you got 3 other guys with Alejandro Kirk back that you can probably rely on. Yeah, you were not happy about this trade when it happened. It's not like you hated the trade whatsoever. It's that you thought that it's just the only thing the Toronto Blue Jays were doing. Like Ross Atkins definitely got one of his assistants to be like, hey, be on the phone with the Padres trades guys for Brandon Valenzuela. Well, I'm going to talk with Louis Varland and the Twins front office and kind of figure some things out. So Ross Atkins, well, he is probably doing a lot of the phone calls. I would love to see how one of these trade deadline days works in a front office like that. But he's not the only one on the call. He's probably the guy that's like signing it off and everything like that, I would assume. But like he's not the only one in that office, just with like, imagine 15 phones. And he's just trying to answer all of them at the same time like that. That'd just be something out of a sitcom, which I would absolutely love to see. And maybe since he's making as much money as he is, maybe that's what he should be doing, honestly.
Well,
but
yeah. And you know what? It was just the fact that it was 25 minutes and I'm already panicking because I assumed there was going to be another move made. And then you see the trigger get pulled. And then the last trade doesn't come until legitimately, 5 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock Eastern on the nose. And I'm sitting there like, hey, I got clumps of hair coming out, panicking. Because, if they didn't make that trade and they didn't get that second bullpen arm, I think we're having a very different conversation right now. And I think so Louis Varland may be just the savior of the trade deadline, which is just crazy.
Maybe Ty France is the savior of the deadline.
I don't want to hear that. You're killing me.
I got one more thing before we do preview another series. Believe it or not, the Toronto Blue Jays are back and with a little bit of a different team rolling into this Kansas City Royals series. But this is the question that I'm going to phrase to you to end off our trade deadline episode. And it is, did the Toronto Blue Jays do enough? Did the Toronto Blue Jays do enough to win the AL East? And I'll even extend that because I think at this point, I called it in the St. Louis Cardinals series. You make this many moves. A lot of the teams in the American League did not buy. A lot of them sold off aggressively. Like this is a playoff team. Like I mortgage bet playoff team. I think that is definitely a fair thing to say. But did the Toronto Blue Jays do enough to not only win the AL East or maybe even win the American League, but in the bigger picture, actually win a playoff game this year?
I'm going to go back to something I said on the live stream, and I'm going to stick to my guns here. And it's a quote from Jose Bautista. For those of you that weren't in the live stream, here you go. For those of you who were, it'll take me 4 seconds to read. It's almost like being at war and running low on ammo. And the next thing you know, here comes a little parachute with a crate, and it lands right next to you, and it's full of ammo. I don't think that's necessarily what this was. I don't think it was reloading the machine gun. I think it was a good trade deadline. I'm happy about the moves that were made. I would have liked to see a little bit more. And that might be selfish of me because I wanted, with all of the craziness that was this season so far for the Toronto Blue Jays, I was expecting like, oh my God, they're going to pull off a miracle trade. That is almost where my head was at. And I hate to say that because I never like to be that guy. But the emotions of this season almost just had me feeling that way. So I feel like there was going to be no win. I would have liked to see them do a touch more, maybe add another good bat. But I think overall, I'm pretty happy with how this went. And there will be people that will argue this with us, Carter, for sure. But that's fine. You can have your opinion. We can have ours. That's why it's an opinion.
See, I've kind of been all over the place a little bit with my trade deadline reactions. Off the start, I was disappointed. I'll be honest. Again, when you see some of the big names flying off the board, You don't really land one of those. Again, Shane Bieber is a big name. It's just there's a lot of uncertainty that carries over there. I was a little bit disappointed, but then again, I had some time to kind of digress, look at these trades with a little bit more of a microscope, kind of dive into them a little bit more here, and just going into the trade deadline. What did we say that we wanted? I said I wanted 3 bullpen arms. I said 2. Whatever, I think 2 is going to be fine. So I did want a bat. Didn't really say what caliber of bat. I just said someone that could kind of complement this offense. Does Ty France do that? I mean, you guys can figure that out in the comment section. We'll see how that works for the Toronto Blue Jays team. And then you get Shane Bieber. I did not want a 5th starter. I not whatsoever. With Alek Manoah coming back in, there is some uncertainty there. But there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of the 5th starters that you would have brought in anyway. I love the move for Shane Bieber. That's exactly the kind of move that I wanted this Toronto Blue Jays club to make. A guy that does have a little bit of control, I guess, in a sense. Depends how this does pan out for him. But there is a little bit of a safety net there if things don't go well or if they do go well. Again, the Blue Jays are going to benefit in some way here. So when you're looking at the starting rotation, you went for the upside, and hopefully we do get that upside because the end goal isn't just, making the playoffs anymore. That's, again, as close to a shoe-in as I'm comfortably able to say on the podcast. But there's a bigger goal at hand, and Shane Bieber, if he is back and into form, definitely helps you a ton to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, Carter. So final thing before we take a break and talk about the series preview. Obviously, there's a series to come. I know we've been talking a lot about trade deadline, but there is still a series in baseball to be played. Final grade, Carter. Final grade. Give it to me. What do you got?
I'll go with just a straight B. I think again it could have been better. They could have got one of the sexier names. They probably could have given up a little bit more, but this team got a whole lot better. That's kind of the way I will leave it. This team is definitely better than it was before this trade deadline. So that's why I will give Ross Atkins a B. I like all the moves. I don't think he overpaid really for anybody. Just would have liked to see probably a little bit more aggression. But maybe I'm not saying that if the Yankees don't go out and get 7 players at the trade deadline. Maybe I'm not saying that if the Mariners don't get a whole lot better. It's just the comparisons, maybe a little bit of the thief of joy here around the major leagues. And I think the Toronto Blue Jays are experiencing that a little bit, and so is the fan base.
I'm going with a B- just for the straight up fact that I said there could be a little more that was done. And I think just the uncertainty around Shane Bieber, even though I think he's going to be fine and I think he's going to be awesome, it's just a little bit of the unknown, and that's what I got to play to right now. So I'm going to go B-, even though I really did like this trade deadline. And
that Will Wagner trade didn't get it up to a B for you?
All right, this guy. I don't know. Sometimes. You know what? Just to cap things off, I guess. Yeah, we want to hear from you guys. And again, like I said, we want to hear your thoughts and opinions on the trade deadline. But not only that, we have a lot of new listeners. And if you guys have just found us or you've been listening a long time, drop a comment down below. We want to know, sort of see how many of you guys are new and are in our comment section, and how many of you guys have been here forever. It's always a blast having new people and being able to see new perspectives on the team that we all love. So stay tuned. We're going to talk series preview right after this short break. Today's episode brought to you by Game Day Hue. I love it. They're my golf glove brand now, for those of you who don't know that. It is the most comfortable golf glove I've ever worn in my life. Today, and the hat. The hats we got too. Yeah, I like the hats with a little peak in them. I have this one on, but I can't show you. And I love those. And they make really sturdy hats. Like, they're super sturdy, but they're breathable. It's like a perfect golf hat. And Game Day Hue, they make clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game days and on the course. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDay, HUE.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals. So now's the time to load up. If you can stack that on the bundle, there you go. Let the colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. So, Carter, continuing on, we do have a Blue Jays series to preview. I know with all the trade deadline talk, it's like, oh, do we even play baseball, or do we just look for trades at this point? Well, no, we play some baseball. You got the Kansas City Royals for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What more could you ask for? It would have been nice if it was a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it was just a whole long weekend, but you can't ask for everything, I guess. So I'll get into what the pitching probables are. Shockingly, or not shockingly at all, the Toronto Blue Jays don't have starters listed because it is an absolute gong show right now. And I'm guessing there's a lot that goes into this, but I will give you a quick rundown on who the Royals are pitching. Michael Wacha on game 1, Noah Cameron on game 2, and then Seth Lugo to clean things up on the Sunday game. How are you feeling? Trade deadline's over. The off day is come and gone. One more series. Royals, here we go.
I'm excited for it, but also a little bit nervous here as well. You got some tough pitching matchups in this series here. I think for the pitching, the way that just if you reverse the order of the starting rotation, I might have the first two mixed up, but it would be some formation of Kevin Gausman, Max Scherzer, and then Chris Bassitt. I think that's exactly the way it would be rolled out. And Shane Bieber not going to be able to make a start right away. Still has some rehab assignments, so he won't be a factor in these next couple of series here, but I think that is the way that it would go. But Noah Cameron has been very good this year in his minimal appearances. Seth Lugo was a guy that I kind of wanted the Blue Jays to target, but then he got extended. And then you got Michael Wacha, a guy that has been pretty good this year as well. And the Toronto Blue Jays offense has sputtered a little bit, minus the previous game, but you look at the 4 prior, not the greatest performances. Again, there's a lot of outliers and outside factors that went into that. But I think this is where you kind of have to get back on the board here. You have a little bit of a soft stretch here. You got a Kansas City offense that is not very good. Kind of did a weird thing when they bought and sold a little bit at the trade deadline, not making really any massive moves, though. So I think you got to take 2 out of 3 here. That Seth Lugo game scares me a little bit. So give me the first 2 against this Kansas City Royals team.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got too. Me and you are most of the time on the same page as it comes to pitching matchups and how we think this Blue Jays team is going to do. And you know what? I'm calling it. I think the offense has come back with a vengeance. I think they needed an off day to clear their heads. I would look out. I think the offense is going to be fully back. I think and hopefully the pitching is. That's where we need to see, right? These guys had a little bit of a tough stretch. Can they bounce back, and will they bounce back? I don't want to keep the listeners too much longer. We have been absolutely cooking this podcast. I'm actually shocked we haven't had any like mess ups or major scripts. It's been a long day. But Carter, my man, it's been an absolute blast doing trade deadline with you. To all the new people that have been subscribing, that have been listening to the pod, we appreciate all of you guys, all your comments, all your thoughts. Be nice to each other in there. That's all we ask. People have different ideas than you and opinions. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes when you guys go back and forth, it's pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. I have a good time just scrolling through comments. But, it's been a blast. Cheer for this team. If you think this trade deadline was bad, don't jump off the bandwagon. Stay on with us. We're riding this team all the way through the playoffs. Let's rock.